Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hypnosis for Permanent Weight Loss podcast. Hitting today's podcast up today live in the Facebook group. If you are not a member yet of the Hypnosis for Permanent Weight Loss community group on Facebook, please join us. I love coming and doing these podcasts live, and it's been a while since I've done one. So nice to be with you all live. And if you're listening to this on our normal Mondays where we come out publicly on all of our platforms, hello, welcome. We're also on YouTube. I'm so delighted to be with you today. The title of today's podcast episode, dun, da, 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 is Fat Thoughts. Fat thoughts, fat thoughts, fat brain. And how to eliminate food noise naturally in 90 seconds. And I'll say it again. I said it right. How to eliminate food noise naturally in 90 seconds. It is definitely constant that we are hearing about food noise because that is the promise that the GLP-1s, the Wegovy's, the Ozempics are promising. And please know, as someone who struggled and suffered with constant food noise for the majority of my life, I know how valuable and how incredible the thought is of having something eliminate the food noise immediately. So I am pro-choice as far as it's your body, you can do whatever you want to do, but I'm also pro-education as far as letting people know that there is actually a natural way without having to inject something that can cause an unknown reaction. There's been reports of people's stomachs getting paralyzed. I've had clients myself who ended up in the hospital as a result of taking GLP-1s. A client's sister ended up in that scenario. And if you don't want to take the risk, though I understand the desire to be willing to take the risk, given how upsetting it can be to constantly think about food, body, and weight. I'm pro-education. This is why I have the podcast, because I want you to know that it is possible for your food noise to go away naturally and quickly within 90 seconds. So today we're going to get into that. As I do, I want to propose something. And what if I was to tell you that your mind thinking about food, body, and weight all the time is actually your mind tricking you into thinking that that's what the actual problem is, that food is actually the problem. But what if I was to tell you that it's actually not about the food at all? It's not actually about the food at all. Consider that your brain has been tricking you. As I say this, I'm thinking back to my past self when I was neck deep in diet mentality and knowing for sure that the problem was the food and the problem was my lack of self-discipline and the problem was me just not having enough wherewithal to follow whatever structure or program that I had followed before, that I knew worked if I just was to follow it. And if someone told me, Leslie, your brain is actually tricking you, and what you're saying about your issues and problems with your food and with your body and with your weight actually has absolutely nothing to do with your food or your body or your weight or your metabolism or your genetics or any of that kind of stuff. I think as I'm really processing it right now, like imagining that, I would have been a little bit relieved to hear someone say that to me. So I hope that you can feel that even just a little bit in your body as I say that to you. And I think I would have also been curious, but that's also me. I'm always very open to hearing what people have to say. And I'm acknowledging that not everybody's very open to what people have to say, and that you could just immediately go into defense mode and say, no, absolutely, I know, that it is this and it is that and all that kind of stuff. And wherever you're at, I just invite you to maybe take on some of my openness and willingness to receive a completely different perspective, especially if the thought of not having food noise in your life anymore is something that you truly desire. I remember when I was in college, I went to the school therapist. I was having some emotional challenges and stress, and I had shared with the therapist about how I actually said to her at the time, because she was like, oh, how's your health habits and this type of stuff. And when exercise came up, I was like, oh, I'm like addicted to exercise. Like, I do it all the time. That is not a problem at all. And she was like, well, it can be. But I wasn't quite ready to hear it. But anyway, I eventually got to that point. So I really believe that as human beings, we struggle with something for as long as we're meant to struggle with it to learn whatever amount of lessons that we're supposed to learn from it. And eventually we do get to this beautiful space of surrender and basically feeling resigned and giving up, because it's so exhausting to be constantly trying and failing and trying and failing despite knowing the things to do. And as challenging as that space can be in, I want to invite you, if you are in that space, to look at that space as being actually a good sign, because it's pointing to the fact that your values could actually be changing. I see this a lot in the women that I work with, where they may be contemplating retirement. It's somewhere in the not so long future, or maybe they are now retired, and there's a difference in your day-to-day and what you're up to, menopause, and just that transition with your body and the way that you're feeling. And if there wasn't changes that needed to happen, if there weren't natural evolutions that we go through as we are constantly becoming the next version of ourselves, well, to me, that's resisting what just actually is. Change is the only thing that's inevitable. It's going to happen. And we do this thing as human beings where we keep comparing ourselves to our past selves, of maybe when we were single, had like the only responsibility of ourselves and doing our own dishes and making sure we get to work every day. And now there's kids, there's grandkids, there's husbands, and we still are trying to force ourselves to go back into a scenario that just is not what is now. Anyway, it's a good thing. If you feel that resistance, if you're in a space of exhaustion and I just don't know what to do anymore, damned if I do, damned if I don't, that's where I really got to in my path of, if I felt too exhausted to think about dieting anymore, but I also felt miserable. And I thought that the only way to not be miserable and to feel better physically, because I felt not good physically, I had a lot of acid reflux going on, I had a lot of digestive issues going on, was to lose weight. But I felt too exhausted to lose weight, so I was stuck in this different place. So yeah, if you can resonate at all in that space, just know that you're in the right place. And yeah, invite you to be open to this conversation. And the possibility that this actually has nothing to do with food. So what if the real problem is that your brain wired itself during an emotional moment of pain and has been running that program ever since? And I'm going to share with you my story that helped me to see what was actually going on the entire time that I was dieting in my life, so you can help to see what could actually be the source for you. So the good news is that you can rewire your mind, and I'll even share today on how my clients have been really moved by many of my clients, current and past, that have been willing to let me use their testimonials and their photos, even before and afters, so that you can know what's possible for yourself as well. So sharing that and how my clients are eliminating food noise in as little as 90 seconds using neuroscience-backed tools. How cool. I love what I do. I love helping people with this. It's just the best. So talking a little bit about my story. So I've always been someone who was 3 steps ahead. I, for example, got my college applications in by November, which a lot of students, it was like, really hard to get it in, by the deadline. And I was way ahead of I remember my guidance counselor was like, oh my gosh, can't believe you're already done. That's just me. I just wanted things out of my space and I wanted to get things done and was efficient in those ways. I also remember being more of the leader in my friend group growing up, in a positive way. And we even I remember being out in the schoolyard and leading everybody in creating like a cheerleading kind of. I never formally cheer led, but I thought like the moves and the throwing people up and the catching people in the cradle and was cool. And so I like organized for them to do this at lunch every day, and it was fun. I also traveled the world solo. I've done extensive leadership training. I worked in the surgical and neuro ICU, which you have to be a confident leader type to be in that type of role. And on the outside, I presented as confident and capable. And given my resume and what I had been accomplishing my entire life, I really was. And I really am confident and capable. And after years of coaching leaders, and I'm really proud of the leaders and moved by the leaders who have come, honestly, by way of this podcast, but like diplomats of countries, Olympic athletes that I've worked with, CEOs of incredible health organizations that are doing crazy good humanitarian work in the world, ER doctors, emergency medicine nurses, flight nurses. What I've seen is that the more successful someone is, the more high stress someone's position is at work, the more responsibility that someone carries, the more their personal life is out of integrity. What do I mean by that? Well, their eating is off. They secretly are thinking about food all the time. Or their marriage is off. Or having trouble even knowing how to stay in a relationship effectively. Or their relationship with their kids is off. Or they have a lot of financial stress. Yeah, and it doesn't discriminate. It's just, this is across the board, and I was no different from that. So, because secretly deep down, I was constantly trying to control my eating and manage my eating. I was obsessed about how I felt about my body. I remember being in leadership seminars when my eating was off, when I was off track, and my brain being so distracted that I couldn't even hear what was being said because I was focused on the fact that I could feel my rolls coming over the top of my pants. I was either constantly like feeling excited and obsessed about tracking, weighing, measuring all of my food, or if I was off track with what I was following, I was really feeling miserable about myself and like felt like I was putting on weight immediately, and it was constantly. And no matter how much I accomplished, and I've accomplished a lot, that was always there. Yeah, sharing that with you in case it relates to you, because if I had anyone say that to me, it would have really helped me, because along my journey, I stopped sharing about my thinking about this stuff all the time or any thoughts about my body, because I found that when I did share it, that the feedback that I got back was like, no, Leslie, everything's fine. Like, nothing, you look great. What are you talking about? No, you eat normal. Like, no. And that really didn't help me. But now I see that the reason why it didn't help me was because unconsciously, me continuously struggling with the food, body, and weight was actually a cry for help, for an emotional need that was not getting met. So, yeah. On that note, when I look back at the very first time that I really started, there's 2 times in my life where it, like, you know, the dieting really, but like where it felt the most impactful for me personally, my core memory was when I was 14 years old and I was feeling depressed, honestly. I know exactly, actually I think I was 13. I remember it being like my 13th birthday party and family was there. And there was like opening presents and feeling like really kind of like dead inside a little bit. And that's a really young age, like that's confusing. But just, yeah. And somehow I landed on my feeling like that I thought that I was depressed. And, you know, my pants weren't fitting at the time. I felt bad about how I looked. I remember in that birthday party photo, I was like wearing just like a gray t-shirt and like just legging pants, you know, stretchy pants. So it took everything inside of me to actually go up to my mom and tell her, I think I'm depressed. And she booked an appointment with the nurse practitioner. They gave me a, you know, kind of like suicide type of depression screening, mental health screening that they had at the nurse practitioner's office. And then it was never talked about again. It wasn't brought up. How are you doing? How are you feeling? What's new? It was never brought up again. And instead, I was given an okay by my mom to join Weight Watchers, to go with my aunt on Monday nights after my piano lessons, and join Weight Watchers. So here's the problem. That didn't work. It didn't work because an emotional problem was being treated with an external solution. And that's how I was raised. There wasn't empathy. There wasn't understanding about emotions. It was just shove them away or try to solve them with something outside of me. And here's where the neuroscience actually comes in with this. So in that moment, my brain wired itself to connect emotional pain, the depression, with my weight. And it said, if I can fix my body, I will feel better. And this is how the subconscious mind works. It makes associations and then it runs them like a computer program. So my whole life, I thought that I had a weight problem, but what I really had was an emotional problem. And here's the other thing that is how we get wired. So the way you change the unconscious mind is through repetition and through emotion. And so the repetition of going to the Weight Watchers meetings every single week and talking about food stuff, right? That's wiring in diet mentality. The other way that it gets wired is through emotion. So repetition and emotion is how we get new neural pathways built in the brain. And so the emotional piece, every time you step on the scale, dopamine hits. And so there was just this link that got created in my mind that the solution to an emotional problem, to depression or sadness or anger or fear or whatever, frustration, any emotion, could even be happy emotion, too much joy, too much happiness, too much, right, whatever, is weight loss. Like, the way to deal with emotion is to focus on weight. So that just got huge strength in my brain, and I see this all the time. So I was in a food addiction program in the past. Still have friends that I met through that program. None of my friends are in that food addiction program anymore. One of my friends, though, had a lot of eating disorder stuff going on, a lot. She went to a Food Addicts Anonymous program with her mother, even younger than I did. And Food Addicts Anonymous, compared to Weight Watchers, it's way extreme. Like, they're very extreme. And and she had a much tougher time than I had to get out of that wiring. But it's not a coincidence that the younger you were and the more severe is the word coming to me, the more intense, the more that whatever it was that you were following, the harder it is to break out of this vicious cycle. But the good news is we can actually break out of it, no matter, right? She broke out of it, I broke out of it, you can break out of it. It's possible. You just have to be willing to put in the reps, right? And make new associations in the brain. And that's what I love helping my clients do, is providing the tools for how you can actually do that if what you want is to heal out of this, is to have freedom in this area of your life, to, be able to eat like a normal person and, do what you normally do in your life. So my whole life I thought I had a weight problem, but what I really had was an emotional problem. And I would assert that this is also, if you've been a long-time dieter and this is food noises happening all the time, and that this is what's happening for you. You don't have to believe me yet, but stick around. Stay open. So I could lose weight through dieting. I could follow the rules, I could restrict, I could exercise and get results. But the moment emotional stuff came up, whether it was heartbreak or stress or loss, some kind of insecurity, transition, going to college or coming home or whatever it was, I was right back in the loop. And that's because when your brain has wired food as the solution to pain, No amount of willpower can override it. Your unconscious mind's job is to keep you safe. And so it doesn't know the difference between emotional pain and physical pain. So if you feel a tremendous amount of emotional pain, or just any emotional pain, your unconscious mind will take over and make the decision that eating the food is how you stay safe and how you stay alive. And so what our work does is, over time, help the unconscious mind feel safe enough to let go of that association that the only way to feel better emotionally is to eat. And it does happen. And we get to celebrate. I believe that we learn the best when we're having fun. I have a lot of fun with my clients. It's not, it doesn't have to always be so like, oh, we're feeling like terrible emotions all the time or anything like that. It's fun to feel. You just feel it. It takes 90 seconds. And now we're starting to rewire the brain to get out of thinking that the answer, the solution is the diet. The answer, the solution is food. No, the answer, the solution is whatever getting the emotional need met. And then watch that over time, that breaks up the food noise. It makes it so there is no noise, because the reason the noise is there is because we're not feeling the feelings that are associated with, right, whatever trigger is coming up. So a normal brain doesn't see food as the solution, for example, to your mother-in-law's criticism of you, or your parents' divorce when you were a kid, or any type of trauma you went through, whether it was big T trauma or little t trauma. There's a lot of girl wounds, friends and girl things that have happened in the past, or definitely mom wounds. You might have really loved your mom, or might have really had a not good relationship or no relationship with mom. Mom is tied. You can check back to a couple podcast episodes ago where I talk about the mother wound and how it relates to your weight journey. But when you've been wired that way, that food is the solution to your mother-in-law, right? Or, getting more strict on your diet is the solution to your mother-in-law's criticism or your mom's criticism, or, right, your kids or your work stress or anything that's happened in your past. That becomes automatic. No amount of willpower can actually get your brain to not send you back into the food, because its job is to keep you safe, and it's much more powerful than your conscious mind. To give you a little metaphor of the strength, so your unconscious mind, you can imagine it's like you're in a carriage that is like a horse and carriage. There's 95 horses on one side of the carriage. And then on the other side of the carriage, there's 5. And then they both start pulling at the same time. Your unconscious mind is the strength of the side with 95 horses going in this direction, versus you in the conscious mind, or who you think you are, pulling in with 5 horses. So you're not going to win that. And that's the strength that it is. But the good news is that your brain is neuroplastic. It can change, it can rewire, and when you know how to do that, the entire weight and food struggle disappears. It disappears. So how do we do this? Inside my coaching, I teach tools that interrupt the overeating program and rewire the brain in real time. My clients use simple emotional mastery techniques that, in as little as 90 seconds, eliminates food noise, the constant chatter about what to eat, when to eat, how guilty you feel afterwards, all of that. And I actually want you to think about it. If you could silence the food noise in your brain in under 2 minutes, how much freer would you feel? And if you can do that without having to take a drug with unknown side effects, is that something you'd be willing to do, knowing that over time, as you're rewiring your brain, you will no longer have food noise for the rest of your life? It feels like magic, but it's not actually magic. It's actually neuroscience. And I could really geek out about this. I was interviewed on a podcast a couple years ago, and I shared something about how I knew, and she was like, how did you know how to do that? How did you know to, right, invest in a coach, or know to, that you needed to do that? And I was like, well, because it's neuroscience. I know that by repetition and motion, the 5 people you hang out with the most, and being with a coach, right, and also surrendering to the process is how you rewire the mind, which is the best news, because it means you literally can create any result in your life. You just need to find someone who's done what you want to do, and then you just need to put yourself in the environment with that person in repetition, right? See them repetitively over time and feel your emotions, and your brain will change. Like, that's the coolest thing ever. So, but until you know that that exists, because there was a large period of my life that I did not know that there were people in this world who were struggling and thinking about food as much as I was. Now we know how many people are doing the GLP-1s now. That there were people in the world that had the same severity of food noise and issues with food, body, and weight secretly, despite being successful. Because that was something else, is like when I checked out Overeaters Anonymous meetings in high school, when I looked into, right, food addiction programs and things that I felt could be, it never felt like me, because I was effective in my life. Because I was a leader, because I was achieving, because I didn't see myself as totally down in the dumps and totally broken. So it wasn't the right fit for me. And yeah, it just makes me thankful that there's many different types of people out there that are supporting people to see what they can't see about this. Because you have to be around the people that get you, that you resonate with who it is for your transformation to occur. So, but I didn't find it. And that's why I've created this myself, because it was okay, I was in, different coaching programs and different containers. I learned different pieces along the way over the 20 years I was dieting, 25, 26, 27, 29 years. And they're all little bits and pieces, but they didn't have the full thing that I needed. So here we are, Hypnosis for Permanent Weight Loss. For those who hear this message, get this message, resonate with me, believe that it's the right avenue for you. So it's neuroscience. So let me ask you right now, as you're listening, what's your strength? What's your superpower? Maybe you're a leader, maybe you're a caretaker, maybe you're the one everyone relies on. And here's the thing, your strength is not the problem. No, your strength is amazing. But the very thing you're still struggling with, food, body, and weight, is often just the other side of the coin. And until you address it at the subconscious level, the loop continues. The madness continues. The constant up and down and food noise, it continues. So I get that what I just shared with you today wasn't actually about food. Yes, food was the surface level problem, but underneath it, again, was an emotional wiring problem. And this is the exact same cycle that kept me stuck in the same one I've seen keep leaders, entrepreneurs, doctors, high performers, people who, right, perfectionists at their craft, whatever that is for you. stuck in relationships, finances, and health. Those personal things. And it all comes down to a survival loop. A subconscious program your mind is running without you even realizing it. And I want to let you know that if this conversation is intriguing to you and you're wanting to know more, that I want to invite you to come inside of my brand new masterclass. It's happening, depending on when you're listening to this, September 18th, 2025 at 1 p.m. Eastern. It's brand new. I am working diligently at creating a masterclass that helps you actually see what you haven't been able to see, so that you can actually get what I have and what my clients have now in a way that just is simple and elegant and logical and free, that just gets you there. So join us if that speaks to you. So my masterclass is called The Very Last Stop on Your Weight Loss Journey. Because that's what this is. It literally can be, if you let it, if you're ready, the last masterclass that you ever have to attend about weight loss for the rest of your life. So it's September 18th. It's at 1 p.m. Eastern. It's online. It's virtual. It's free to attend. If there's someone in your life, a fellow dieter, someone who you talk about this with a lot, who also struggles, please invite them or share this podcast with them. And yeah, the link to register is hpwl.info/masterclass. That's hpwl.info/masterclass. If you're watching this live in the Hypnosis for Permanent Weight Loss community Facebook group, in the comments there is a link to that. And you can type it into any web browser, hpwl.info/masterclass, if you're listening to it in any other way, on your phone or on your computer. So in this 90-minute masterclass, I'll show you how to break free from the triggers that cause you to overeat even when you know better. I'm going to show you how to identify and release the subconscious pattern that's been running your food and weight struggles, and let you know why all diets fail and what actually works, backed by neuroscience, and practical steps for how you can get out of the madness too. I can't emphasize enough how incredible it is to be on the other side, and it's possible for anyone. I promised in the beginning of the masterclass that I was going to share with you some client results. So thank you to these beautiful clients who have let me share. Free from food noise, overeating, and cravings. So Deb, my client, said before the program, binge eating felt impossible to overcome. I'll just say quickly, I've had a lot of people say lately, like, I eat healthy food, I don't binge on, donuts or fast food. No, it's not always. Sometimes I have clients who do that, and I can help them very easily move through that. But sometimes it's either just portion control, or it's binging on the healthy stuff even. So just know either happens here. Now I feel completely free from food noise. And in control of my emotions around eating. My cravings are gone. My confidence is strong, and I truly love who I am now. I know I will never go back to the old me. I'm so delighted for this woman. She just took off. Anyway, releasing perfectionism and self-judgment. So my client Tess, her words are, this program gave me the tools to let go of perfectionism and self-judgment and to finally feel safe, worthy, and enough. I've learned to give myself grace, listen to my body, and look at memories with love instead of criticism. For the first time, I trust myself and know I'm safe and loved. And then this person chose to remain anonymous. Confident in food decisions, food freedom, and inner peace. This program has completely changed my life. I'm finally free from food now and forever. My cravings are gone. My emotions are no longer tied to eating. And I truly feel confident in my food decisions. I built a loving relationship with myself, let go of old beliefs, and now live with food freedom and inner peace. One other that I want to share with you. I've tried every diet, pill, and shot, and was even told I'd never lose weight. Now I'm down 45 pounds, and for the first time, I know I'll never gain it back. This program changed everything. It's the best thing I've ever done for myself. And honestly, the year is 2025. My feeling is that it's time for the weight loss industry to do better. We all know that diets don't work long term. We all know that hacks and pills and pokes won't fix the problem. This masterclass will work for you. This process will work for you if you're ready. And it will work the very first time. So join us September 18th, hpwl.info/masterclass. You can reserve your spot for the last stop on your weight loss journey. So thank you so much for listening to the Hypnosis for Permanent Weight Loss podcast. Remember, you do not have a food problem. You have a brain wiring problem. And the good news is that it can be rewired, sometimes in as little as 90 seconds. I'll see you on September 18th, hpwl.info/masterclass. Ready to finally break free from the diet hamster wheel and create lasting transformation? I've put together a free hypnosis training just for you, where I break down why diets keep failing, the mindset shifts you need to stop the cycle, and how to rewire your subconscious for true effortless change. Text the word hypnosis to 1-855-232-5483 and I'll send it to you instantly. You don't have to keep struggling. Real freedom starts now. Take the first step. Text the word hypnosis to 1-855-232-5483.